capsule health a little bit being really important. It's been tricky for me to kind of set it up in my basement and like record it properly. But I think this will make sense. And if we need to go over it more when I see you today, then like we absolutely will. Just wanted you to be able to reference something. So we just want this to be with a posterior sort of distraction to our shoulder. Inferior would help a little bit though too. So I mean, if you could set up the monster band in a way to where it's distracting you posteriorly with a little bit of inferior traction, probably not bad either. The idea for our setup would be you can probably be standing at the CrossFit gym, spin this and attach this monster band in a way that you normally do to where it creates a bunch of traction when you get into this position. But using these free kind of stands here on the free rack or their legs, we could slide up into our position of restriction, that combination of ER and flexion, and then making sure that we're comfortably also being distracted here and our joints not kind of jutting forward. We've kind of got that ball into the socket. Step one, if we're running through like a clean sort of following the FRC principles, we want to hang out here for a little longer than expected. So just making sure that we're truly feeling that distraction, we're letting that joint capsule like kind of stretch into that like external rotation that we maybe don't have at the time. So step one, relax for like 45 seconds, find the stretch, get set up to apply a bit of an isometric. Step two, inhale down into that lower stomach. Start by pushing that elbow into that leg stand first, that free rack stand. Then the hand's going to follow. So I'm going to inhale, start pushing with my elbow so that I kind of activate like the front of my shoulder. Then my hand is going to follow. So I'm driving into internal rotation or acting as if I would be pushing into internal rotation, but not going anywhere. Ramp up to a safe max contraction, but like, I don't know if max needs to be 100%, but I do think that we're thinking about this in a way to where we really want to create like a bit of a different joint in this position. So like ramping up to like 60, 70 to 80% of like your force here is totally okay as long as we're not experiencing any front sort of like angle pain or like pinching angle pain, closing angle pain, I just kind of call it. So we're stretching, we're ramping up by slowly pushing the elbow followed by the hand so that our entire shoulder is driving into internal rotation. I like to hold for like 10 to kind of 12 seconds. I will then shut off for a second after that 12-second contraction. Depending on where we are in stages, sometimes you would then follow that up with what I would call a regressive angle contraction. So pushing into internal rotation here is the opening angle contraction. The regressive angle contraction would then be us holding, re-inhaling into our lower abdomen, pushing the elbow into the free rack leg again, and then lifting that hand off of that free rack stand, which really is asking a whole bunch from our like posterior cuff, and it's getting that glenohumeral joint to externally rotate again. So we're gonna hold into that external rotation, right? With the monster band, you should be able to keep that joint in a good place, and we're gonna relax. Holding length might be like 6 to 8 seconds, depending on how crazy and crampy that ends up feeling. In the beginning, there's going to be a whole bunch of cramping. As we get a little bit like better at it, and as the range and capsule kind of wakes up in that position, it should get a little bit better, which is when we can add like a little bit more challenging kind of movements to that range. This would be a great setup for when you're at your CrossFit gym. I also think there's a setup that we can kind of go over using just more of a kettlebell in a supine position where we're using gravity a little bit more, like as the mobilization tool. But we'll talk about that a bit after your session today. Just wanted to give you this quick overview.